I would say the results from Snowline that have come back here, once again, just jaw-dropping numbers. 467 meters, 1.1 gram gold per ton. The fantastic result. These are infill holes primarily in this news release. There was a higher grade interval up top in that hole, 154 meters at 2.1 grams per ton. Very consistent results from this deposit. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about what it means, and then we're going to talk about some results from one of their other targets. All right, so let's plow in. Let's go to the next slide. All right, here in their image, one of the nice things to do is they highlight the holes that have come back with these bright colors. So you can see previously released holes kind of in transparent in the background, kind of faded in the background. And then you can see these drill holes where they've got new reported intervals in somewhat darker, more bold colors, which is easy to see. And then there are also drill holes on here with lots of little yellow dots. Those are the holes that have yet to come back. They're holes that have visible gold in them, and we should expect quite a few more assays. I think they have something like 7,200 meters of assays still awaited. Anyway, the drill holes in this news release, yes, there's a couple right there in the guts of the system. You can see them. They're very bold red numbers, but the ones that I also find intriguing are actually around the periphery here. Okay, so I think these are equally exciting. For example, hole 109, which is, there's one hole that kind of sneaks under there, but hole 109 is the northwesternmost hole along the gold bearing corridor, and it got some decent results. In other words, it pushed the deposit out in that direction. And then you got hole 108, which is basically drilling. It's up in the north there, but it's drilling back underneath the deposit, and that also generated a long interval of mineralization. 106 as well. 106 is kind of in the midst of other holes, but still very good results. And then way down here, hole 110, which is towards the south end, also has a pretty decent interval of mineralization. So they're still expanding this, albeit incrementally out from the original footprint. That's in addition to the infill that they have right there in the guts. Let's go to the next slide and look at a couple of cross sections. First of all, this cross section 105, this hole pretty much confirms the block model as it was projected previously. I think this block model dates back to March or April of 2024, but it confirms the grades. You can, visually, you can see very easily the correspondence of the high grade in the drill hole with the higher grade intervals in the block model. Now, you can also see that even below the pit at the bottom there's still some yellows and a few oranges hanging out there. So I think we might see a little bit of addition down there at the very, very bottom. That's exciting. Go to the next slide. And then this hole 108, which is that one that I mentioned kind of on the back, on the northeast side, but coming back underneath the deposit. Look at there, you got a very long interval, 307 meters of 0.65 gram. Yeah, it's lower grade, but still, that pulls the deposit to the northeast. And that's in that kind of void area that I've talked about over the past year or two, that they're starting to see infill. And this simply adds tonnage. It's really nice to see additions in terms of the resource when you see holes like this come back. There's a higher grade streak in there, about 32 meters, 1.58 grams per ton. So good results once again, but let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about this target. Look, they drilled a number of targets across the rogue property this year, and this Aurelius target was just one of many. Now, the target area is actually quite large. I zoomed in and just clipped the image from the core area where they drilled here, but you can see they have soil samples and talus samples that show there's pretty good gold anomalism across this general region. They do have, evidence of an intrusive up there in the northwest corner, that pink area with the granite, and then the pink lines are granodiorite dikes. So yes, there is a reduced intrusive lurking around here, but most of the rocks in this area are actually sediment and volcanic rocks that are not, they're country rocks. They're not the granite themselves. Okay, so most of the drilling they did here was actually in the country rocks around the intrusive. They simply targeted areas that, for accessibility, but also that had demonstrable gold mineralization. And while they didn't hit just huge numbers, they did hit substantial intervals of anomalous gold. Let's go to the next slide and take a look at this in cross section. You can see two holes here, holes 4 and 2, that show long intervals of gold mineralization, some little higher grade pops in each hole. Is it economic? This is, it's anomalous. It's anomalous. There's also copper. Interestingly, notice the copper interval there in the lower part of hole 2. Kind of smells a bit more like, porphyry mineralization or something like that. What does it mean? I couldn't tell you. I think if you look at this target, I think it's quite a ways south, if I remember right, from Valley, and it might be associated with a different igneous complex, a different reduced intrusion. And sometimes you can get a little bit different flavor in terms of the metals that come with it. And in this case, it looks like it has a bit of copper. Now, what do I say about all of this? Well, notice that the host rocks, you got mafic tuff, that's a volcanic rock; graphitic siltstone, that's a sedimentary rock; felsic tuff, that's a volcanic rock; siltstone, that's a sedimentary rock. So you got basically drill holes that are outside of the reduced intrusive that have hit strong anomalous gold mineralization, but we haven't seen, a good test right into the mothership, so to speak. In other words, these guys didn't plow right into a reduced intrusion. I think that was the concept, that there was something like right below this area. Didn't turn out that way, but does that mean it's a bust? No, there's still something lurking nearby that's kicking off all this mineralization. This stuff doesn't appear magically. It's, I call it a near miss, most likely. So I think it's definitely warranted to see further drilling on this target next year. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, Sitka announced a very aggressive drill program for 2025. They're going to do 30,000 meters. We did have a follow-up call with them after they put this news release out. And that was really just to get a better understanding of exactly what their objectives are. Now, remember, the company put an updated resource out into the market, I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was robust. It was a nice expansion of the resource, mainly from the Blackjack target or Blackjack deposit. But I think they went clear up to 2.8 million ounces. Now, that's great, okay, but there is a lot more to this system, all right? And the thing that, your eye is drawn to immediately when you look at this map on the right-hand side is a very expansive anomalism in soils. You can see the bright yellows and reds and stuff up there in kind of the upper right quadrant. Well, that's basically telling you where the footprint, I think, is telling you where the footprint of the underlying magma chamber that generated all this is located. Okay, so basically that's telling you where the cloud of smoke is above the mothership. And if you think about it as an inverted cow, that would be the udder, and then the little stalks, the intrusions that have come up are the deposits they've drilled to date. This would include Blackjack and Eiger and so forth. Pulkaman too. They've only got a couple holes in Pulkaman, a couple holes in Roscobble and stuff like that. So we've got a lot more to come. Now, what are they planning to do? Let's take a look at that. Let's go to the next image. I think this is fairly well put together. Okay, it shows where they're going to allocate meters. All right, notice they got about 15,000 meters planned at both Blackjack and Eiger. I would really love to see the bold step of drilling between the targets just to see how things connect. It's again about that cow model, right? So I want to see where this part of the system is down there, because if there's a big, mothership, wowza, that's exciting stuff. But that's a good plan. Okay, 15,000 is fairly aggressive. That's kind of getting up in the Snowline level of commitment towards a drill program, like they've had at Valley over the past few years. But they've also got 5,000 meters allocated to Pulkaman. Pulkaman is a completely separate intrusive in most respects. Okay, so it's a brand new target, and they've had some good early results from those. From this area. So I think 5,000 is a great number there. But Roscobble, they're actually going to throw 10,000 meters there, which is really interesting. So basically they see, I think it's mainly because of the historic holes that are scattered throughout this area that all hit significant gold. I think they get a sense that there's a much, much bigger system at Roscobble. So I'm very excited about this. I hope they do take not allocate a bunch, but at least have a hole or two in areas between to start to see how these things connect up. Otherwise, this looks like a very good, robust drill program. They are going to start drilling here shortly, which means I'll have some news over the next few months. It is slower in winter, but then I think as spring rolls around, they will accelerate the program, and we'll probably see the bulk of the drilling of 30,000 meters towards the latter part of the year. I'm going to try to make it up there this season. I'm going to try to make it up and visit all these targets. Really like this story, and I think it's just a monster in the making. All right, go to the next slide. Eloro put some news out. This actually came out shortly after, I think, our previous video, which was actually a couple of weeks ago. And it's about a drill intercept into the tin zone at now Iskis. And now we know there's tin there. Okay, we've known from day one that there's tin accompanying the silver, zinc, lead mineralization. But in this particular case, in this particular area, it seems that there is a kind of a demonstrable segregation of the metals. You have in this hole a very high grade tin intercept. That's 33 meters of 1.39% tin within a much, much longer interval of 87 meters, 0.74% tin. Okay, this is exciting. This tells us that there really is kind of a picture of two different ore bodies like sitting right next to each other. And because of this, I can see a case where, they might end up with, say, a couple 100 million tons in this infill program they're doing at the silver, zinc, lead part. But they also might have a substantial tonnage of fairly high-grade tin associated with this porphyry tin system immediately adjacent into the west. Okay, that's kind of intriguing. That really does kind of supercharge this story. I think it's a very good outcome. Let's go to the next slide. This image really captures it. It's a geophysical, it's a chargeability image. So basically, it's looking at the electrical response of the rocks in the ground from northwest to southeast across this target area. So the area that's called epithermal zone, you can think of that as the silver, zinc, lead area. That's where they've been doing a lot of their infill drilling here over the past few months. But then this TIB, this is the tin, it's an intrusion breccia, okay, big mouthful. It's basically an intrusive rock that came up and it kind of brecciated stuff. It broke up into pieces as it was coming up. But it's basically the porphyry center for this tin system. And as so often happens, you usually see the higher grades of mineralization kind of around the edges of an intrusion like that. So notice the hole 72 kind of goes more or less straight down in the boundary between the TIB and the epithermal zone. And it's right in that sweet spot where you would expect high-grade tin to be. And lo and behold, that's what they hit. So this is very exciting. I think more holes will be warranted in that area, but that epithermal zone, we already know has a good chance of being, say, 150 or 200 million tons of pretty decent silver, zinc, lead mineralization, akin to what we see at San Cristobal, for example. So a very exciting outcome here. Let's go to the next slide. All right. Cantex put some news out. Again, it was a couple of weeks ago, so it's a little bit dated, but it is impressive in my view. Now, one of the things about Cantex is they are kind of doing wide spaced drilling right now, and you can kind of see that in the map over here on the right. The little brown outlines that you see are basically the areas where they've hit mineralization. It's not to say there isn't stuff in between those that connect everything all together. It's just to say that that's where they see mineralization to date. And right now they've been focusing in that northeast area, that northeast extension. And they hit a very nice interval, 9 meters of 34% combined lead zinc with 96 gram silver per ton. So that's about 3-ounce silver. So a very stout base metal intercept. I've talked about this system in context of it being a Broken Hill-like system, which is a famous deposit, SEDEX deposit that's been metamorphosed. That's located in Australia. It's a world-class deposit. Everybody knows BHP, right? Broken Hill Proprietary. That's the company that founded BHP. Look, in this case, the results they have tell us that the system continues to grow. They pushed it out in this direction. They need to be more aggressive and test the areas in between. and really see where the center of gravity is also in this thing. Right now, the drilling is quite wide space. So they're seeing good grades, albeit localized, but that's a good sign nonetheless. Go to the next slide. Let's look at this thing in cross section real quick. This is a cross section with that drill hole. Now there's multiple holes in this section, and I think all of them were drilled in this season. So they basically did a fan of holes like this into the ground, and it was based on this target that they had identified as dipping steeply there, I believe, to the northwest. Okay, now we can see there's kind of scattered intervals in the upper holes, but as you come down, down dip, down plunge, you can see the intervals get better and better defined. And this hole in particular is that second one from the bottom there with the red. That's where that high grade is. Now the hole above it and the hole below it is a bit lower grade, okay, which is kind of an interesting. I'm not sure how to explain that, but does that bother me a whole bunch? Well, no, not really, because a lot of times these systems, once they're turned up on end and then they're kind of pulled apart or shifted or folded or whatever, they'll become compartmentalized into high grade chutes. And I think what we're seeing there, most likely, my guess is going to be that extremely high grade mineralization, 34% combined zinc lead, is probably a compartment of higher grade mineralization, and they need to figure out where it's plunging in and out of the section and chase it in that direction. An intercept like that, 9 meters of massive sulfides like that, grading extremely high grade, that's high value rock, guys. 34%. I mean, geez, that's what would that be, about 700 or 800 pounds of metal per ton of rock. Think about that at $1.30 zinc. I mean, we're talking about $900 to $1,000. Well, plus the silver. Don't forget the silver. Probably $1,000 rock, we'll call it. Okay, so that's good stuff. That's a very nice, respectable result. Needs to be followed up. They need to start figuring out where that high grade extends. There could be a very substantial deposit here hiding in plain sight. I like it. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, here's a story of a bit of frustration. Back in December, Barksdale was drilling a deep hole. And in early December, they started to get into what was clearly some nicely mineralized rock. In fact, the company put out a news release in the second week, December 12th of 2024. The results from that interval that was discussed in that news release came out, and there were some very high grade assays, but they were scattered over a length. Okay, so they weren't all together. They were kind of scattered in pops down the length of what they were seeing. We were all very excited. I am a director, for full disclosure. We were very excited. We had Peter McGaw, who's a technical advisor for us, come out, take a look at things. He was very excited. And then the hole started to struggle. They got in because of the mineralization. It was really a vestige, of the fact that we were in mineralized rock that started to make the drilling challenging. They fought and fought and fought. It was like a 2 or 3 week fight to get the hole or advance the hole from there. And unfortunately, they lost the battle. Okay, very skilled drillers, very skilled team, but there's times when you just can't beat Mother Nature, and this was one of them. Now, is it the end of the world? No, I think that the quote that's down there towards the bottom from Peter, who's examined the core, is very accurate. There was a lot of mineralization in this hole, including things that are more esoteric for most retail investors, but basically anomalous geochem, certain elements like manganese and weird stuff like that, as well as minerals that tell us we're in the periphery or the escape area where the mineralization escaped out of a bigger system. Okay, so he calls it the exhaust stream. It's an interesting term, and I guess that helps kind of convey it, and mentally forms a picture. But there's got to be something big down there. That's our consensus, is that there's still a very big prize. And it is down dip from Taylor. It's just where we expected to start seeing these kind of results. Don't forget, Peak deposit also comes into this area as well. So we see both the high copper that they see at peak, but we also see high lead and interestingly silver, very high silver in this system as well. It's a disappointment we didn't get the hole down. Let's take a look at the details. Go to the next slide. This shows where the drill hole is located. The brown jig-jag line is the boundary between Barksdale and the Taylor deposit, which is off to the east. That belongs to South 32. And the black line, hole 2B, is south directed. And right there at the end, those little green and blue bars that you see are actually measures of copper and silver on either side of the hole. So you can see how right at the end of the hole, we started to get into some impressive mineralization. And then, unfortunately, the drill team did a face plant right in the, as we were getting into the good stuff. Let's go to the next slide. These are cross sections showing the same thing. Now, why this is important is because you can see the target horizon for us is that dark blue unit down there at the bottom. Those are the lower Paleozoic carbonate rocks that host Taylor and host Peak. We did get into the Concha limestone, which is kind of a little bit above the most favorable host formation, but we didn't get all the way down into that epitaph dolomite, which is down below. Okay. Disappointing, but is it the end of the world? No, I think this data, including the copper silver that you see on the left-hand side, and then the lead zinc that we see on the right-hand side, tell us that we were getting into the good stuff. Other elements were definitely anomalous, like manganese and stuff, that tell us we're in a big system here. And unfortunately, I think we just stopped a bit short of the prize, so we're going to have to come back at it. Excuse me. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, Goliath. I don't have a lot to talk about geology this week, but interestingly, Goliath did basically, I mean, this amounts to a share swap, if I read it correctly, between Goliath and McEwen Mining. Now, people say, well, what on earth would, what is this? And look, I mean, it takes a little bit of head scratching to fully understand what's going on here. But basically, McEwen Mining, rather than putting up cash to take a big stake or, a meaningful stake, 3.76% in Goliath, they put up their own shares, which is interesting. Okay, and those shares are liquid, so I'm sure they could generate cash for drilling and things. But, McEwen definitely wanted to take a stake here. Is it a controlling stake? By no means. No, it's not. 3.76 is not a controlling stake, but it does give the company, a big player, call it an intermediate level miner involved here, as well as, liquidity, cash, potentially for drilling. Now, does it mean McEwen Mining is going to rock up and make an offer to buy out the company tomorrow? I don't know. I mean, but maybe this is a first step. Maybe that's one way to interpret this. Don't know. Might it attract other suitors? Like, will other mining companies go, oh, well, let's see. Maybe we should step up here. Well, maybe. Okay. And look, Rob McEwen's pretty smart. He's probably, I would actually put him as an investor more than, like he's known for running Goldcorp and stuff like that, but he's a really smart investor as well. Okay, so I would give him credit for saying, hey, this is a good opportunity to invest. And quite frankly, the stock's done well since this time. I think that the day it came out, it was like trading around $1.70, $1.80. Today it's more like $1 or $2.40 or something like that. So cool. Let's go to the next slide. All right. A lot of people have emailed me about this. It's these are results from Hannan Metals. Okay, so first of all, I got to describe the area. This is from Previsto, which is in Peru. It's part of their bigger land package that they have on the east side of the Andes in Peru. And Previsto is quite frankly, it's a greenfield target. There's no historical mining. There's no, evidence of anything here. I mean, it's like, holy cow, how do you find something? It's very hard as a geologist to understand how anybody could find something just completely new on this planet in this day and age. But these guys did, okay? And what did they find? Well, they found what appears to be an alkaline gold system. Okay, I love alkaline gold systems. This one is really intriguing. Here we are in a brand new target, brand new area. And they encountered 69.1 meters of 2.4 gram per ton gold in a trench. This is not a drill, it's a trench. So it's early days. And it was really a trench dug, just opportunistically in a certain area. They had done wide space soils and kind of said, okay, it looks like there might be something happening here. Dug a trench. To get those kind of numbers in the first go in a random trench out in the middle of nowhere in the jungle is kind of jaw-dropping, to be blunt, okay? Now, is this a small one-off thing? I don't think so, because the geophysics suggests it's a large system. There's a very good expression in different types of geophysics, especially magnetics, that says this thing has got some size to it. The team also has a reasonably good understanding of alkaline gold systems, and they know, based on the rocks that they found in float and stuff, that the nature of the rocks being alkaline volcanic rocks, as well as the alteration associated with them, is like just right on with what you would expect in a system like this. Okay, so this is really, really intriguing. It's part of this Baleen project, which is a broader project that also includes an area of porphyry copper golds that's off to the southwest from Previsto. They've got those queued up for drilling, those porphyry copper golds, but I think they're going to move this. You can see down there at the bottom, they're going to move this target to expedite drilling here too. So we got a little bit of a window here before they start drilling, where people, if you look at this story, you might go, geez, that might be worth throwing some money at. All right, let's go. Not advice, just my 2 bets, whatever. Okay, here you can see the property, this Valiente project, but I think it's Baleen or whatever, is down there in the southwest of that yellow block. That's that porphyry copper gold area. And then Previsto is up in the north or northeast area on that block. Okay, and that's where this alkaline gold appears to be coming from. Let's go to the next slide. All right, they've got some pretty broad mapping here, guys. Like this is I was down there right before COVID, and I mean it can take you like an hour and a half to walk a couple hundred meters in the jungle here. It is rough as guts. Okay, so this is a remote area. It's got a lot of jungle. I think just to get back to this trench, I remember somebody saying, "Oh, that's about 3 kilometer hike." Like, holy guacamole! So again, I want to get down to site here. I'm going to try to figure out sometime in the next month or two, or I can haul my butt down there and hike in and see this thing. But this is a greenfield thing. It's as green as it gets. What you're seeing here is a map that basically says, hey, we found this big blob of alkaline rocks in purple. And then you got your, country rocks in brown and green around it. But that's a big system, okay? Like in context of some of the other alkaline complexes around the world, like Porgera or Cripple Creek or something, this is every bit as big as those. This thing is a few kilometers across. Yeah, very interesting, very strong results. You can see where that trench is. Inside of that 60 odd meter trench, there was 26 meters of 5.4 grams gold. Imagine finding that in a greenfield discovery in this day and age. That's crazy. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And then this simply shows the trench. It shows the grades within the trench. And it's not like just 1 or 2 samples generated the gold. It was coming from a string of samples there, more towards the north end of the trench, but there is kind of low-level gold all the way down there too. And they got the assays nicely listed over here. One of the most intriguing things in my view, well, there's several things that pop out. One is the ratio of silver to gold is not particularly high. In other words, I usually like to see 1 to 1, maybe 3 to 1, somewhere in there. And this kind of has that flavor to it. Okay, so the silver to gold ratio looks very, very good. There's not a lot of copper. Okay, there's a little bit of anomalous copper, a few hundred ppm, but not really porphyry copper stuff. Okay, so don't think of it that way. One of the things that does intrigue me, though, is that you start to see a little bit of anomalous zinc. When you see zinc, it's often present in alkaline gold systems. Just its presence tells me that that substantiates this being an alkaline gold system. And then over here, second to the right, you can see tellurium. I say, what the heck is tellurium? It is an element, okay, and is an extremely rare element. And one of the only places we see tellurium are certain types of gold deposits. Now, you can find tellurium in reduced intrusive deposits like Snowline, for example. They have anomalous tellurium, but you also find it in big alkaline gold systems. And in this case, we're seeing whopping big numbers, like up to 40 some odd ppm tellurium. It's not meaning it's economic. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that is a hallmark of an alkaline system. So the fact we're seeing big numbers like that, that is remarkable. In fact, in the early days at Cripple Creek, they had lots and lots of tellurium popping up like that. So this is very interesting, very interesting. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, on the note of interesting, inflection. I told you many months ago we'd wake up one morning and wham, they'd have an announcement they've actually encountered porphyry copper gold. And they have. Now, is this economic? Well, hole 23 has some pretty long intercept, tens of meters, of, we'll call it strongly anomalous, 0.37 gram gold, 0.07% copper in that first run, 0.4 gram gold, 0.06% copper in the second run, 0.22 gram gold, 0.04% copper in the third run, a few tens of meters in each case. Is it an ore body? No, but this is getting near something. In my view, this is very, very close. It's got to be close to something. These remind me of drill holes that we would see, like when I was at Newcrest, and they were drilling East Cadia in the early days, and they were kind of around the periphery of the main Cadia deposit. They would start to see runs like this that you see here. This is getting close to something, guys. I really think either it's a bit deeper or somewhere just nearby or something. Okay, but let's look at a map to see if we can figure out a little more. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, now this is this is really interesting because you can actually see the drill holes that have been drilled here over time, and the holes were drilled sequentially, and so the numbers of the drill holes correspond to kind of the chronological order in which they're drilled, of course. And here we are in hole 23, and lo and behold, we're right back near some of the first holes that were drilled. Okay, so it's almost like we come full loop, and we're right back in the general vicinity where they could see early on very strong alteration and geochemical anomalism in those early holes. But now we're starting to see stuff that's looking wow, like, wow, this could actually turn into a major discovery, maybe somewhere nearby. And you can see that right away in the image on the right hand side there. That's cross section showing those drill holes. Notice they have to drill through that cover rock, that blanket of no mineralization. But once they get down to the basement, you can see right away, yeah, okay, that hole on the right is a little sniff. Next hole, a little bit more sniff. But then, wow, look at the values, how they grow by the time we get to hole 23. There on the leftmost hole. Lots of room. Okay, there's plenty of room to find an ore body here. I think they're going to expedite, getting back here and following up drilling here. The company thinks, and I think Anglo Gold, who's earning in here, thinks that the vector is pointing more to the south. In that big area where you can see in the upper left there, they don't have many drill holes right now. Okay, so they're going to try testing this thing, from what I understand, more aggressively here in the not too distant future. Hopefully, we wake up one morning in a couple of months and bam, there's 400 meters of 0.6 gram gold and 0.3% copper or something like that. I mean, that could be an outcome. All right, let's go to the next slide. Electrum announces started drilling over at Timok East. This is in Serbia. Timok is part of the Bor mineral camp. The Bor field is one of the biggest copper districts on earth that nobody knows about. But it was the site of a very, very exciting discovery back in 2012 by Reservoir Minerals. What's it called? Chikari Peki, I believe it was. I often butcher names, but I think that's how you say it. Was discovered. It was extremely high grade, upper part of a porphyry system. It's kind of high sulfidation part of the system. very high grade copper and gold, and it ended up being an absolutely remarkable story where it was bought out, actually subsequently bought out twice by Nevsun and then by Zijin, and made a lot of people a lot of money over about a 10-year period. Okay, so hopefully these guys, Electrum, can do the same thing maybe. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, what is their target? Well, they see a copper gold target. I've talked about this in videos over the past couple of months. It's pretty well defined by the geochemistry and the soils that's been done, but they've also done really good geophysics across this area, and that core area really lights up. It's a few hundred meters long. Copper gold target, it's a very discrete target, and it lights up in terms of its geophysical expression very, very well. So let's go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, you can see here the hole. This is one of the holes they had planned. They're going to come at it from the east. So up on the top there, you can see there's a big resistive blob. What does resistive mean? Well, the rock down there doesn't like to let electricity pass through it. Hence, it's called resistive. And that usually happens when you get rocks that are hydrothermally altered, especially if they're silicified. Okay, so the belief here is that that big resistive blob is a body of silica that was developed by hydrothermal alteration. Now, at the same time, we have this chargeable anomaly, but it's higher up, okay, down here in the bottom. So you can see where the drill hole goes. There's this kind of subdued but light blue blob right below surface there. And that's believed to be disseminated, caused by disseminated pyrite and things like that. That's above that resistive feature. This is the kind of expression you might see in the upper levels of a porphyry system. Are they going to nail a porphyry? And I don't know, but could they have the top or like a high sulfidation system like they saw at Chikari-Peki? Well, this looks a lot like that kind of thing. So hopefully these guys, I really hope they nail something. Now, one of the things that's driving me nuts, and I hope some of the people that are at the company listen to these videos. Look, they have. Here's let me step back and paint a picture for you. Okay, so back, say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there was this very strong view amongst geologists that the Bore district had a certain defined limit to it. And, thou shalt not go out of that boundary. Okay, like everything's in here, right? Well, these guys have stepped out to the east and they're finding anomalies. Okay, they found this target, for example. So that right there just immediately says that whole old guard thesis that everything must fall in this very tight boundary of geologic understanding at Bore is out the window. Okay, they have basically opened up people's eyes to say, yes, there's much more to this district. And the company has done a good job. They've actually staked a lot of additional ground out there to the east. So they control this new, call it greenfields pasture, that nobody's really explored before. And while this target is great, and I really hope they're successful in this, I think they have a lot more targets to find. Okay. And I really hope the company doesn't just blow through their cash before they actually do some more work on other parts of the property, because they might have several more targets out there to be found that are equally, if not even more compelling to drill than this. Okay, so it's really an exercise in taking the blinders off and saying, gee, could there be a district scale play here with multiple targets? And, maybe this one delivers, great if it does, but maybe they have more that they need to test. And I'd really like to see the company pursue that. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Irving Resources. We've formed it. I'm a director, disclosure. We formed an option to earn in with JX Mining up at Omu. And JX wants to build a smelter flux operation here. They want to mine silica-rich rock to use for smelter flux in the smelters around Japan. And we have it. Okay, we have the Omu Center. They're very excited about this, but we also have this Omu mine site where there's a lot of silica at surface. And what JX has decided to do with the money they're putting into this is drill very shallowly angled holes. Okay, so in this image on the right-hand side, you can see a red trace there. Usually holes are like 60 degrees, 70 degrees, something like this. not in Japan. Okay, they like to drill shallow ones like this, and it's very very unusual. It's the first I've seen it drilled underground, shallow holes underground, but I've never seen surface holes like this. And they brought this rig to site. It's like, holy guacamole, what is this? It looks like something out of a Godzilla movie. But it did the job. It drilled a horizontal hole. Like, wowza, that's crazy. And in that hole, there's like silica veins, one after another, over about 40, 50 meters. And this news really simply updates folks on that. We were very successful in seeing a large volume of silica veins that we're awaiting assays, so we're going to see if that has gold, but that might be a very large body of silica that's near surface. Because these holes are shallow, you're testing effectively the grassroots level in the system. We're going to drill a whole series of holes. I think 4 more of these scattered across the Omu project area here over the next few months. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find a large volume of gold-bearing silica right in plain sight. That means this project could potentially be expedited to become a smelter flux operation fairly quickly. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Altamira put out some results. This is from a trench, 17 meters, 1.5 grams. People say, okay, that's interesting. But look, what's really interesting about this is it's outside of the resource area, meaning it's not, this trench isn't sitting right on top of the resource. This is an extension, a 200-meter extension of the resource in the central mineral block at Cajueiro. Okay, now this company has done an exceptionally good job of defining new targets. Okay, so everything you see there, all those white circles, and now this work they're following up at Cajueiro, the central mineral resource area, is trying to define multiple targets. Okay, again, it's kind of the cow and the teats model. Okay, so there's a very large intrusive system here with a number of apophyses coming off of it, and all of those arrows are just basically saying, hey, there's multiple gold sources here. This company needs to drill more. Okay, flat out, this company needs to drill a lot more, because that has the scope and scale of, say, what we see at Sitka. Okay, yeah, it's been a tough market. Yeah, it's hard to move a project forward when you don't have a heap of cash. But man, I'm telling you, the geology there tells me you could have a very large reduced intrusive type system, given all the targets they see here. They're just one after another. And this one is one of them. Let's go to the next slide. I think the zoom in here shows a little bit more. So that blue area is the central mineral resource target area. And the resource is in the areas where there's a little black lines. Those are the drill holes, the drill traces. But notice the blue lines that you see there. Those are some of these new trenches, and they're seeing really strong results in these, and they're well outside of the areas that are actually defined by drilling in the resource. All right, so I think right here they could probably expand it. So right now it's like 600,000 or 700,000 ounces. Like 1.3 gram or something. I think they could probably expand that significantly. So right here, let's say you get up to 1 million, 1.5 million ounces here, but then you have 3 or 4 other targets. You get Maria Bonita, maybe that's 500,000 ounces. You start throwing these all together, maybe you have 2, 3, 4 million ounces very quickly. Company needs to drill. I love this project. I really want to see it advance. All right, let's go to the next slide. And we know the metallurgy is good too, by the way. Okay, Kingfisher announced addition of yet more land. This time it's this Hickman project, which is at the west end of their kind of sinuous claim block there. You can see from the image, the light blue, that's their tenure. The new tenure is that one with a red box around it. And there's kind of a cryptic picture of the geochem behind there. And those are those bright colors. And I'll zoom in on that in just a second. Okay, but notice the location of the Hickman tenure. It's right between Shaft Creek and Galore Creek. So you got 2 world-class porphyry copper gold systems at either end. And then you have this porphyry that they've now secured, basically consolidated 100% here at Hickman. Really interesting target. Let's zoom in on the next slide and look at this further. Okay, the Hickman target is over here on the left-hand side. The valley that this occurs in is a glacial valley, or the valleys on either side are glacial valleys, and there's still residual glaciers in some of them. But you can see where they did the sampling, where they can access. There's a whopper copper and soils anomaly showing up there. It's like a ring of a bathtub, just because of where they could sample and get the material. But that is a compelling target. Okay, and again, it's right, but look between Shaft Creek and Galore Creek. That is a really interesting target. That's probably, in my view, that's probably one of, if not the best targets now that they have on their property. So I think Kingfisher is really well set up for being a very exciting exploration story over the coming months as the market kind of picks up again here. Let's go to the next slide. Kuya. Kuya put out interval drill intercepts from its Cobalt project. This is a Silver Kings project up in Ontario. And again, they drilled at Campbell-Crawford this time. It's where they hit some very high grades a couple of years ago. And they hit some pretty distant intervals here, not super high grade, but they hit some okay grades. Okay, 11.5 meters at 353 grams silver, so about 11 ounce in that first highlight. And then below, there's a mention of 5 of 7 drill holes intersected significant visible silver cobalt mineralization, with best intercept being 1,372 grams silver over 2.36 meters in hole 23. Now, again, look, this, these are great intercepts for a camp like this. You don't hit stuff like this at random. Let's look at what they think is going on here. Go to the next image. They do a really good job with geology. And what they're saying in this image is they now can see a structural pattern where you get kind of these two shear veins, the McNamara and the Angus, but then you get these connecting veins, these ladder veins in between. So they think the veins they're hitting are probably these linking structures. These they look like books standing up on end. All right, this is an intriguing model, because that is exactly the kind of thing you see in other nearby deposits like Kerr Lake and even the classic Cobalt District. That's what the system looks like, and they can kind of see that evolving now. Let's look at the next image, and you can put it in bigger context. Okay, so that area with the pink dashed lines and then the ladder structures is right there on this image of geophysics, the magnetics. What is this showing? Well, the blue patches, the dark blue patches that kind of trend east and west across there, are probably associated with the main shear structures that they brought about the linking structures. And it's compartmentalized, which you would expect. So it's like, here's a bit, here's a bit, here's a bit. They're strung out like this. There's a lot more to test here. Notice the two big compartments where they haven't drilled any holes yet. Where it says suspected ladder vein, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's future drill targets. Now, this is really interesting, because I think they're starting to see a real formal picture pop up here of what this district might deliver, this target might deliver. In terms of scale, to give people a sense, the Kerr Lake deposit, which is very nearby this, has a very similar expression, similar scale, and it delivered, I think, around 80 million ounces of silver, very high-grade silver. Okay, I think they're still in early innings here, but I think they have, given the scale of this geophysics and now their new model for how this is organized, I think they have the potential to find another Kerr Lake scale project or silver endowment here. All right, so step by step, here we go. All right, let's go to the next slide. Blue Lagoon, after pushing their permit along for what seems like forever now, they finally got it. They are poised to become BC's next gold producer. And what's really intriguing is a number of companies have received permits in BC here recently. That's a good sign. Okay, that says BC is open for business. I think seeing this kind of progress it's like a breath of fresh air in the mining industry, seeing, ability to get permits through. Okay, the highlights over here, look, I won't read through them all, but basically this deposit has ability to generate a few thousand tons, a few tens of thousands of tons per year of high-grade vein material out of this dome project. Okay, and what could that yield? Well, the test work they did a couple of years ago by putting it through the process facility at Nicola, which is nearby, generated revenue. It generated very good recoveries, very high, gold contents, and there's concentrates, et cetera, et cetera. I know the group that bought the concentrates, they love this stuff. Anyway, this project's ready to rock and roll. These guys could actually be cash flowing in the not too distant future. Small mines are tough, but man, if you get them going and you do it right, they can make some decent money. So here we are. Good on them. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, Juggernaut announced that they've secured that Big One gold discovery. This is the ground was secured, or the option was secured just recently. They announced some results from it a while back when they first announced they were acquiring the ground. Look, you can see the results here. This is actually, believe it or not, up in the northern part of the Golden Triangle. It's very close to Kingfisher, for example. It's not far away because you can see somewhere and look, my eyes are too small to see, but somewhere it says something about Shaft Creek on this image, and I can't see it right off, but it's not that far from Shaft Creek. There's a little arrow somewhere, and I just can't see it for some reason. Anyway, they have very strong results, mainly out of veins across a pretty broad area here. Is there a porphyry associated with these veins? Yeah, possibly, but these are good vein results as well. I think the company needs to do a lot more targeting before they go swinging a drill around. I really hope they'd map it in greater detail and develop targets before spending a lot of money in drilling. But hey, hard pivot, new story. Maybe they'll make some really good noise this year.